Hello everyone, I'm here with an old friend. You might know him as the guy who got his ass whooped in my random fucking fights video. And we're gonna talk about old RPGs for a bit.
Well, hello everybody. I'm the other guy, as I was just referred to. I'm sitting here with the guy you know, and he's been one of my closest friends for a very long time, pretty much as far as I can remember. And for all this time, we've been playing video games together. Old games, shitty games, all of them.
Yes, most of them. Let's put it that way.
Most of them. No, seriously. I mean, he's the guy who actually got me into video game collecting, into my old passion for these old games, and
now he's got a shitload more games than I do. By the way, okay, he's got like 5 times the size of my collection.
In all fairness, I only collect PC games. You collect consoles and everything.
Okay, but your PC game collection is bigger than mine.
Well, yeah, thanks. Whenever, maybe at some point, I'm gonna get to make a video about it, and then I'll show you guys. But yeah, I got quite the collection going on. But it's not about the size of the collection; it's about the passion for these old games.
It's how you use it.
It's how. Nah, but yeah, as it has been said, we're gonna talk about a little bit about role-playing games and about the effect that they had on us, since video games have always been a big part of our lives. For one, I love role-playing games.
Yes. How much did they affect you in staying a virgin forever?
they greatly contributed to it.
No, but seriously, I started playing old school RPGs pretty early on because of my uncle, who isn't actually that much older than I am, and he donated all his old games to me from when I was really little. The first one was Dungeon Master, actually, and I was way too young to really understand the game. I wasn't even in school at that point. So he played it with me, and even though I only ever played like the first 3 or 4 levels of it, it started my love for old school, especially dungeon crawlers.
Yeah, that's what you call them.
Yeah.
In the old days, yeah, that's what it was.
Right. Because if you take Dungeon Master, for example, there isn't anything else. There's not even different dungeons. There's just this dungeon. There's one dungeon. Yeah, there's one dungeon. And one type of wall texture, too. So, but it started my love for these games, and I still love them to this very day, even though they are hugely frustrating, especially if they don't have an auto map.
Yeah, I know. It basically, again, it was you who basically started this whole thing for me, because I remember back in the day, you were the guy who had all these nice games. I'm thinking of games like Dungeon Master or the early Might and Magic titles, you know, and I always loved to come over to your place and play them, and that's actually where when I think back to it, that was the first time I got into contact with good old-fashioned RPGs, and it had a huge impact on my life, since it's now my favorite genre.
And or at least I never really understood those games, mind you.
No, you had a character, you had some armor, you had a weapon, there was an enemy appearing in front of you, and you tried to hit him. I mean, back in the day, that was enough to be entertaining, right?
Right. Especially, I remember when I played Dungeon Master, I didn't know about there's a party you should have. My uncle, he told me about magic and how you should utilize magic in this game. But other than that, I picked the characters because I thought they looked cool.
Yeah.
Or also because they had a cool weapon or something.
Yeah, of course.
I never once looked at the stats. Matter of fact, I found out way later that you can even look at the stats, because you don't see them from the beginning on. You gotta click something, their eye or some shit. It's amazing that, and I never really played through any of the early games that I had. I only played through a few levels of them, but they stuck with me in such a way that I've replayed them over my life again and again, and I've pretty much beaten all of them.
They did, didn't they? I mean, I just remember these games, playing it over at your place, or at some point I think you borrowed one of those from me.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about way back in the time. There was no such thing as the internet where you could games or something like that. No, how it was customed in that period of time, especially when you were young and you didn't have that much money to buy games, you bought different games and you borrowed it to each other, right?
Or you
And
just straight out copied it.
yeah, but you know what I mean. I mean, back
Yeah.
in the day, actually, when you had a CD or the discs, for that matter, that was legit. That was the game, you know.
Yeah.
And you could just borrow it to someone and play it, and that's what you did with the Might and Magic series. And I remember, I didn't get it. I didn't understand anything I was doing, but it was so much fun. I looked at the stats and they were like, "Hey, there are numbers there, and hey, there's a number how much strength my warrior has." But he still couldn't kill shit. But hey, there I have a number for it. It was kind of cool, you know.
Yeah.
And then you got +1 strength, and you have 1 strength more, and you feel like a big hero, fucking hero. Still, you can't kill anything, but hey.
It was so bad, and especially Might and Magic. I got, I don't know, pretty late in the game for me. It's still in elementary school at that point, but it was much later. I had Dungeon Master and Eye of the Beholder, and only then I got Might and Magic. And to this day, I still always play with the original cast of heroes you get. They suck. I know this by now, but I never knew in the beginning that you could actually change your heroes. I thought those were the heroes you're stuck with. Deal with it.
Let's be honest, as a kid, you didn't read the manual.
No.
You just clicked on play and you figured it out.
Yeah, I had this bestseller games version of it, so they actually had tips and stuff in there. Never read it until I was much older. I
Bestseller game's a German thing?
Yeah, it's specifically it's German only.
Yeah, but no, just for the people who, might not be knowing it. Bestseller Games was a gaming magazine here in Germany, a very respected gaming magazine, and let's just say back in the day when the issues came out, it was awesome. Every new issue, I mean, I think there was maybe one magazine coming out each month.
Yeah, no, or something like that.
Or something like that. It was not like every week or so there was a new issue, but every time there was a new issue, they had a full version of a legitimately awesome game.
Yes.
That's why they were called bestseller games. Maybe the games were a little bit older, maybe 1 or 2 years old, but let's be honest, I mean, we were young and we could buy these magazines and have awesome games.
Yes.
And really, we're talking awesome games. We're talking the old classic LucasArts adventures like Monkey Island, Day of the Tentacle, what have you. And
yes. It's so Alone in the Dark.
Alone in the Dark.
2 at least, and 3.
Yeah, we're talking Alone in the Dark.
Siberia.
Siberia. You name it. They had
Rebel Assault,
Star Wars. You name it. They had awesome games, and that was pretty much.
What was the high time this was all. I collected all my money to get the bestseller games because I didn't get a lot of money. I couldn't even buy all of the fucking bestseller games. I think they're like 40, I think 37, if you count special editions and collectors stuff. And I maybe, through my life, I got maybe 10 of them. Maybe a little more. I had 3 of these collector's editions where they would collect 3 games in one package.
Really? I never saw one of those.
Well, I had 2 of those, actually. Rebel Assault, I got one of those packs. But I had maybe 10 of these, and they always came with a with a what's it called, a magazine. They came with a magazine, and
it was a magazine.
Yeah, and the magazine would have a solution or tips
always
and
a
tricks.
complete solution for the game. It had, and to be quite fair, I mean, titles like these, like Monkey Island, for example, it's one of the first games and one of the games I remember most fondly. And let's be honest, I mean, when was Monkey Island released? About 1983 or something?
No. Monkey Island is much older. It's
or 1990.
It's 1990, 1991. I think it's 1991.
I just recently looked that up. We should know this kind of shit, but
yeah. And actually, not that long ago, I had I actually had a speech, isn't that? A talk that involved Monkey Island, and I looked it up. It's 1990, it's 1991, something thereabouts. No, but bestseller games were fucking awesome, and if I bought games myself, this is where I bought them, right? The first real non-used boxed copy of a game that I ever bought was Alien vs Predator 2. So those were years later. Years later.
Yeah, no, but let's be honest. I mean, for example, even if it were 1999, 91 or whatever, I mean, at that point I was 4 years old, so obviously I didn't play these games on their release date. But still, you know, at the time when they were released in, for example, these magazines, and it felt like recent to me, because those were the games I had available to play, and I loved them. I so much loved them. There was no thing like, oh, these are 2 years old, it's not recent anymore. Those were the games you got to play, right? And
yeah. No, bestseller games were awesome. Now, I don't know how we got to bestseller games. Oh, yeah, because they had the magazine, and it actually had hints.
And they had the Might and Magic games.
Right. I've got it right here. It's just my original version of them, the one I had back then.
There it is.
I just ripped out the map and never touched the magazine until years later. I never knew you could change your hero setup. I actually played it with the original heroes, and while I've played through the game with a good set of heroes, nowadays, and I replayed, I don't know, I've replayed it a bunch of times, is what I want to say, and most of those times I take the original hero cast, because they have got nostalgic value to me, and I simply fucking loved it when in Heroes of the Might and Magic 2 you could play the guy as a hero that you had as your sorcerer, the original setup
really?
Sorcerer. Yeah,
I didn't know that. Okay, cool.
I think he's even actually there in Heroes of the Might and Magic 3 too, but in 2 he's got the exact same picture that he has in Might and Magic Clouds of Scene. He's a bluish, elfish looking kind of guy. Weird freak. I loved him. He's the magician of your group.
Yeah.
Right, no, I love that. You were gonna say... I'm sorry, I think I cut you off a little.
No, I don't think so. I mean, yeah, those were those games, and for example, for me, I have to admit that in the good old days, RPGs didn't play that big a role in my life. I mean, simply for the fact that, like I said, we were young. I mean, if it were up to you, there was an abundance of games that you would have liked to play, right? But, I mean, you had a limited amount of money, you only had a limited amount of resources, you only got to play those games that you got to play, and
half the fucking games wouldn't work on your computer for some mysterious reason, and you couldn't get your parents to work on every fucking game. Number one, they wouldn't do it. Number two, they might have some insights on whether you should actually play that game that we wouldn't actually want to have.
Let's just say you did not always want your parents to know what kinds of games you were playing. It's a funny side story about my first-person shooter. Well, you know, the good old games where you watch your dad how to operate DOS, and at some point you figure it out yourself, and you could install and play the games normally. Your dad said, no, I'm not going to install that for you because it's too violent. You know, the good old stories.
Yeah, weirdly enough, my dad never had the problem with actually violent games. He wouldn't install them for me, but we had a fairly big collection of them, and he installed them and looked at it like, and nothing worthwhile, and uninstalled them, but he never stopped me from playing or installing them. He just didn't do it for me. My dad really had a bug up his ass about war games, things like, funnily enough, you know, flight simulators that involve shooting shit like I don't know, Comanche, which is just this helicopter simulator
game. Yeah,
he wasn't happy when I bought that with the bestseller games, because my mother bought it for me because I roped her into it, and he wasn't happy, and I kind of knew he wouldn't be happy because it involved war, and that was that was his no zone.
Yeah, it wasn't very popular with parents that day. But I mean, let's be honest. At that point of time, I mean, with the graphics we're talking about, that's nothing to compare about the shitstorm that was about to come in the next years when we're talking about violent video games, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
but just to keep it in perspective, one of the games my dad installed for me and let me play happily was Mortal Kombat 3.
And one of the games that is actually, for all of you who don't know it, right? That game is actually... It is illegal in Germany, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have this kind of list, where two violent games got on back in the day, and it doesn't mean it's actually forbidden for you to have it and stuff like that, but it is forbidden to advertise it, and it's forbidden, or most of the stores just wouldn't sell it. It wasn't illegal for you as someone who is of an adult age. To buy these games from international sellers or from inland sellers, but technically, inside of Germany, you weren't allowed to commercially sell these games, right?
Right. It's actually there are two kinds, and Mortal Kombat is even one of the worst kinds.
Yeah.
Even though there are only very few of them. Basically, there are a lot of games. We call it the index.
The index, yes.
And it basically says, well, you can sell them. You as he said, you can't show people that you sell them. And they have to walk up to you and ask, do you have this game? You can say, yeah, sure, I do. Here you go. You can't put it anywhere somebody sees. You can't put it on television. Things like that. But you can sell them. And then there is a very short list that involve about 20-25 games of they're actually forbidden games. They are mostly to do with our hate speech laws and the fact that the swastika is illegal in Germany. But a few other games came on that list because people made a fuzz about these specific games, so they got taken up on the list. The most recent one of those was I think Dead Rising. Actually, the Xbox age was the last time we actually completely censored a game. And Mortal Kombat is one of those, because when there was the whole fuzz about violent video games that centered around Mortal Kombat, some concerned parent in Germany started a lawsuit that resulted in the Mortal Kombat games number 2 and number 3 landing on that list. So these, if you were to sell them in Germany, I don't think they're actually still on that list, but back in the day, if you were to sell them,
you would have got a fine for this.
Right, yeah, and this is not only a fine. I don't know. I don't think anybody ever got to jail.
I don't know how harsh
for
the laws was, but it was an actual crime. It was a felony.
Yeah, right. No,
let's just...
You could go to jail for that.
You could have gone to jail for it, depending on the circumstances,
right.
But yes.
And right, but... it was never a crime, weirdly enough, to own it. So if you were to own it and no minors were around, they couldn't even take it from you. The crime is as soon as you start to sell it. It's about shops.
Or you make it accessible in
to
any
minors.
way to minors, or basically when we're talking about Nazi symbols and swastikas, like for example the prime example was Wolfenstein 3D, right? A big first-person shooter classic, but in Germany... No, sir, because in Germany we have these laws that forbid any display of Nazi symbolics, like swastikas or something. But, in the game, it is, as anybody of you who knows Wolfenstein 3D, it's not a Nazi-promoting game. You shoot, you kill the Nazis in this game, but still...
Mecha Hitler.
Yeah, Mecha Hitler. But, I don't know, but
I had that game too back in the day, by the way.
Eva, auf Wiedersehen. No, but seriously now, it was just the fact, the game was not forbidden because it was so brutal and so violent and shooting and whatnot. No, it was simply the fact that they were like these tapestries at the wall who displayed swastikas. That is, in Germany, is a no-go. Simple as that. But... Yeah, that's the kind of stuff we had to deal with here.
Right. So,
and we got
now actually, I think about Mortal Kombat. and Wolfenstein 3D, but both games which are on the list and were technically made available to a minor, myself, by my dad. But I don't really think he was aware that they were forbidden or some shit. The point I wanted to make is, weirdly enough, my dad didn't mind violence so much as he minded war. War was the thing that wasn't allowed in video games for me.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, actually, if you think about it, because, I mean, violence on some point, yes, but if you look at, the typical splatter humor, I mean, it can be like satire. It can be a little bit just too much, but war is something that is always be real, and especially for older generations like our parents, and as they got to know it, I mean, as children of the post-war children,
I just because we're talking about it, we are so far off topic, but
so far off. But you know what? I mean, we started.
Fuck it, right?
We started this whole thing.
Us.
Hey, seriously, guys, we started this whole thing. We said, hey, well, let's talk about RPGs and let's talk about the influence of these old video games. And this is here where it leads us. But I think it's awesome.
No, to come back to war. You know what? The last time was I was stumped by my dad's anti-war stance in games was when your dad got you Eurofighter, and I don't know if you remember, my dad refused to copy it for me.
Really?
I did that myself later on using his computer because. And I remember this because the thing, this is an involved flight simulator, and we were way too stupid to.
It was not a game. It was an actual flight simulator. It's not about bragging or anything. Just for side information, my dad used to work for the company who is involved or was involved in the development of this European. Fighting jet, which is called the Eurofighter 2000, and he basically, since he was involved in it, he got this program. That
was before it actually
was released. Yes,
yeah.
It was actually commercially available. It was a simulator for that game, and we both two dumbasses. We tried to play it like a game, and wow.
And what you would do in the beginning is, because we couldn't get the fucking planes to start, there was an option we found out to start in the middle of the air, and we would just ignore all the missions we had to take the biggest missiles we could find and attack static targets like skyscrapers that were scattered around the map.
Dude, we were doing 9/11. Yeah. Holy shit, man! There was
long before it was hot.
Yes, really. No joke. All jokes aside, there was a map which was basically displaying the east coast of the United States, and there was New York City, and the only type of landmarks you had were buildings like the skyline of New York, and the World Trade Center was still in there. And actually, I mean, there was no animation for it, but if you flew your plane directly into one of these buildings,
or a bomb for that matter,
but for that matter, the polygon or the graphic shape that displayed the building would simply disappear, indicating that you just destroyed it, right?
And here's the thing, and I don't think I ever told you that, but I went back after we played it for a little, and we had this family tradition of Sundays sitting around and having
at evening dinner.
No, this was noon for us. It was Sunday noon was family talk, and everybody fucking told this story. Yeah, and what I was telling about is, I guess I was that weekend at your place and we played the game.
Yeah.
And I was super happy about it and kind of proud because my dad liked flight simulators. We had Microsoft Flight Simulator and stuff. So I told him, and we played this game and it's so cool because you can actually take rockets, and pretty much told the same story we just told you. And I look at my dad and I'm super happy and shit. My dad is super grumpy and is like, that's like fun when people in skyscrapers get incinerated and they scream while the skyscrapers break down. And I was like, holy shit, man! There's no such violence ever happened in the game or in my head.
In the game, okay, but I mean, we were kids back then. we never depicted the amount of violence that this would display in reality, right?
Right. The point I'm trying to make is there's no indication in the game that actual people are suffering anything,
I think it's
and my kid mind never made the step. I never thought about they're people and they're
never
dying.
you were amazed simply by the fact that something happened in the in which case the model for the building would disappear, and you were amazed by that fact.
And then the specific reason we bombed the buildings was because they were static and they wouldn't move out of our way.
And we could hit them with the bomb, a bomb which is called the Sea Eagle, which it's basically a torpedo, right?
Yeah.
It's a bomb that you deploy, drop into the water, and which travels on as a torpedo. But it was a bomb that actually could destroy one of those buildings, one of those skyscrapers in one hit. So we used it on that.
And still, people were still talking pre 9/11, and my dad he had this complete. I'm not want to say meltdown. My dad wasn't too strict about these things. It was just sarcastic in some kind of way, in a very, very dark way, that stuck with me to this very day when I think about the game. And it was the last time I ever had a comeuppance with my dad about war or involved in video games. He really saw no humor in that at all. That was pretty fucking dark, especially how they I don't know, the mood at the family dinner table turned from me being uber happy telling about this awesome game that I was still hoping to make my own game at some point, and my dad got his fucking meltdown about it.
No, but let's just be honest. I mean, this is something I wouldn't even criticize. I mean, I mean, your dad he had no idea how you were experiencing the whole thing, right? You experienced it as fun, and not fun in the way of, oh, I just destroyed a building and killed like hundreds of people. No, you were just simply amazed by the game, the program itself, and how the things you do were displayed and shown. And this is exactly the thing we're talking about here, right? It's the fascination of these things that now we call games just because we're used to it, but the whole process of how it came to this and what role did it play in our lives, this is what this is about, right?
But it's still there isn't that much difference if you think about it. The games kids play, no matter if they're video games or otherwise, they often display some quite harsh realities that the children don't really try to display. Like,
sure.
My father had a bunch of Native Americans and cowboys and Indians. Kind of play stuff, like forts and little figures and stuff like that. But I wouldn't get soldiers, because soldiers were war. But he had those, and I could play with those. Now think about that. I mean, if you were to go to America now and they and display those toys, they would, those aren't good toys. This is genocide on the Native Americans, which is, of course, on one hand true, but on the other hand, if you're a child and playing cowboys and Indians, there's nothing genocidal on your mind.
There's not a single second you spend a thought on this aspect of this historical event, however you want to call it. It's, as a kid, you just, and that is exactly what video games do. As a kid, that's the only thing what you do. You take the premises, you take the situation, like you are an adventurer, you are in this kind of like dangerous situation and you have to resolve it. That is what games do, and completely, how do you say, disconnected from all sorts of morality or moral implications that it would have on our real life. That is what games should be, and it's just an advanced form of humor. And if you look at the definition of humor is a way that humans do to deal with tragic. It's like, when you make a joke about a bad thing, that's actually it's very basic for our mind.
No, the point I try to make is it's not that different with people. Always get a hissy fit when there's a new medium on which the violence or whatever it is happens. But it's actually nothing else than has always existed. If it's in plays, you know, in ancient plays that people would theater, you know,
Yeah.
or is it if it's in books or if it's in fucking movies, we have violence everywhere. Nobody goes around saying so, oh. You read this Stephen King book? Holy shit! You really must enjoy violently killing people. No, this is the thing that I really hope that doesn't happen to me when I get even older than I'm right now.
This is basically my mom in a nutshell when she sees me play violent video games. Still up to this day.
I just don't get it because it's just a different medium. Nobody flips a shit about you. I've had it with movies because they are relatively new, and I've seen it with comic books, but there's so much established tragedy, violence, war stories. Nobody cares. Everybody thinks that's just fine and dandy. But as soon as it's on a new medium, holy shit! I think all the violence in the world exists only because of this one thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy and has nothing to do with RPGs in any way.
Nope. This is the point where I have to say we've gotten way off topic.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we did.
I didn't even notice.
Yes, it was kind of my fault. I brought in the whole bestseller games and the games that we acquired via this magazine, but originally we wanted to talk about RPGs and the reason why I got to talk about bestseller games because that was actually the opportunity I had to play the old Might and Magic RPGs, which I got to play via you.
Wow.
We used to play this. We used to play Dungeon Master. I think you played Eye of the Beholder as well.
Yeah, of course. I played Eye of the Beholder after Dungeon Master. After my uncle got wind that I enjoyed Dungeon Master, which he gave me for, I don't know, birthday or something, when I was like 4 years old or some shit. Seriously. And that I kind of enjoyed that. The next thing I got was Eye of the Beholder. And at that point I was maybe 5 or some things like that. The point being is he would give me the box, I'd be happy, he'd install it for me, spend 1 or 2 days playing it with me, which was basically actually his present, if you think about it. It wasn't so much the game as spending 2 or 1 or 2 days with my uncle, who would play these games and go along explaining stuff to me, and doing things that I wanted him to do. Oh, hit that thing, can you do that? For example, I remember like the Magic one was one of the last ones he gave me, and one of the things I wanted to do was stealing stuff from the shop, which you could actually do. So, so of course I played these games, but I didn't really play them in any reasonable sense as people would play RPGs. To me, those were just games, and I would play with the setup and the save that my uncle provided me because...
Yeah, sure. I mean, but this is exactly what I think... That's another point where we got off topic. It's just what I was saying. It didn't need to be... The game didn't have to be released recently when we played them, and we just had a limited amount of availability of these games. And
Dungeon Master was released the year I was born. So.
Right. But still, and this is what I think is the fascinating thing about these. We still played these games with a passion that it didn't matter how old they were. They were the games that we had available to play. I mean, you could say that at the same time there were probably more graphically advanced games available during that time, but still it didn't matter to us. We didn't know about them. Those were the games that we had available. We could play them and we loved them.
Right, and especially if I think back to it, I think I mentioned that in my Dungeon Master review, but Dungeon Master was kind of the game, Dungeon Master and Space Quest, because I actually, they're pretty much tied. No, they're not tied. I think I play played Space Quest earlier with my father, or my father played it and I watched him. But the point being, Space Quest and Dungeon Master were kind of the earliest games that opened my eyes to that games could be more than what you would classically see as a kind of one screen or one level kind of game. You know, like you would have all these earlier games I remember that I played, like for example, what's the name with the beers? Come on, what's it called? Where you're barkeeper and you gotta grab hold of the tapper, right.
or all these old games. Frogger, I remember as one of the first game, the earliest games I can remember playing on my PC or on the PC of my father, for that matter.
And as I've got other video about the first 5 games I ever played, and just like the progression there was, it's like one screen games. Those were the earliest things I recognized to be video games.
Yeah, Asteroids or...
Right, no, Asteroids to me actually came way later, but...
when it was featured as a Windows game, but I actually played it back in the day when it was kind of new and it was kind of exciting. Remember the day when we played it back together at my place, and we were like fascinated about the stuff when you kept on pressing forward and your ship was actually accelerating constantly, and at some point your ship wasn't visible at the screen anymore. It was just like a blur, like going over the screen, and there was an asteroid on the map, and at some point your blur would just bam hit it, and you know, it was kind of funny back in the day.
Right, but that was a specific port. That was like the earliest Windows port, I believe.
I think so, yeah.
No, but now I lost my train of thought.
You
derailed my train of thought.
No, I did. I did not. I gave you a startup for your road, because actually I always respected you as the person. You know, you were my connection to these early RPGs, and like I said, nowadays these RPGs are one of my favorite aspects of the game. But for me, it started well later. For me personally, actually, it started like with games like Might and Magic, playing with you and Dungeon Master and stuff like that. But then came games like, you know, the early Elder Scrolls game, like Arena, and which I did not play as much, but especially after then, Daggerfall was a big title. I think both of us...
I only played Daggerfall... I knew of Daggerfall, maybe possibly because of you, I don't know. But I really only played Daggerfall quite recently, a few years ago. So
well, I mean, Daggerfall, I remember I used to play it when I was younger. I don't know, I think my dad had some kind of CD with a PC game compilation, something like that, and it was on it. I had no idea what I was doing, and for God's sakes, I did not play this game very far ahead or did actually beat it or something. I was far ahead from that. I was just wandering around, testing out jokes, remembering the ghost that says vengeance and stuff like that. You know, shit that creeped the hell out of me as a kid. And
I just wanted to. All my main memories with Daggerfall is not hitting anything and being pretty frustrated with that. Because of the awkward way the RPG system works.
You had no hit mechanics. You didn't know if you're actually hitting your target or not.
Right.
That was kind of the fun.
Right, and also not solvable dungeons. Okay, that's would be why I stopped playing the game. And I'm sad. I know it's kind of cool. I should look deeper into it, but that really frustrated the shit out of me.
I can understand that, but what you need to realize is what a historic event the Elder Scrolls game provided for us. Because I don't know. Correct me on this if there's any older games who featured the same mechanics, but as far as I know, as far as I remember, this was the first game that introduced me to the kind of RPG that it still Elder Scrolls is today, with titles like Skyrim and whatnot, is that you do not pick a specific class at the beginning of the game. You don't pick like a warrior or a mage or a thief or something like that. No, you pick a character, and as that character you have accessibility to all the different skills that there is, and basically you can completely customize your own character in the way that you progress in the skills that you actually use, which I think that mechanic, I think they optimized that one in the third one in Morrowind, because that is definitely the one that I played the most. But I mean, it started with Arena, not just the whole character system. I think in Arena you didn't actually you couldn't progress in your certain skills simply by using it, which they had in Daggerfall. But what they already had was, for example, the spell creation. You could create your own spells depending on the magic effects that you already know, and you could completely make custom spells. And as bad as Arena was back in the day when it was released, I mean, it has its history about delayed releases or prematurely releases, or I think it wasn't even meant to be
meant to be an arena fighter.
It wasn't
actually,
meant to be an arena
style,
fighter, hence the name, right? But it was never meant to be an open world RPG, and I think it was the story went like something that there was other games were about to come out at the same time which featured open world gaming, and they were like, okay, we need to feature that as well, otherwise our RPG has no chance on the open market. And they did it in a really short time, and basically there's no such thing as an open world aspect in Arena, but still they try to make it, they try to sell it that way. But still, actually, believe me or not, I liked the game. I really liked it. When I played it back, I actually played it recently because I got the Elder Scrolls Anthology box, and I thought, hey, come on, I got to play them chronologically and start with Arena, and I actually enjoyed playing it. I actually did.
No, I understand and enjoying these types of games, but back to the way the character works, because you said that before. I think the way of leveling your character, where your race kind of dictates what skills you can take and you cannot take.
Yeah.
Those are rule sets specific to, for example, Dungeons and Dragons games.
Yeah, I know.
Or the Dark Eye games too. For that matter, but
let's be honest. I mean, that's why I'm saying. That's why the Elder Scrolls games, I wanted to emphasize on that.
No, and I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying games that didn't come out of the Dungeons and Dragons or Dark Eyes tabletop role-playing kind of way. Sometimes had this because actually Dungeon Master is a game that operates in exactly the same manner. You can actually teach everybody everything. Yeah. And your skills evolve completely dependent on what you are. And it goes even so far that there are non-magical characters in Dungeon Master. But, and I've done this, I read about it then. What I actually did, I wondered if it was possible at a time where you could just read about things online. And I checked it out, and it is possible, so I tried it. You can get a non-magical character like a dwarf, like one of my favorite characters, Stam, who had the axe. He has no mana. Yeah. Now you can have a priest that brews a mana potion, and you give it to Stam, so he has a little bit of mana.
Okay.
And now you use that little bit of mana to make some magic happen. And you do that fucking shitload of times, and then Stam evolves and gets a level,
advances in his skill in magic,
right? In magic, and then from then on has a magic trait that you can actually pull up. So the system, I don't think they meant for that to happen, okay? But they actually meant for a dwarf to be a non-magical character. Deal with
like
it.
Like it would be fitting, right?
But the fact is the system is completely based in a way around. I think it's basically 4 character traits like ninja, fighter, priest, and magician, and you can train any of these traits with fighting and getting damage as fighter, throwing shit and using bows and stuff like that is ninja. Making potions pretty much is priest, and I think protection spells, but I don't fucking know. And magician is I don't know, attacking, opening doors, bullshit like that. Point being that you can advance anybody in any trait, even so far that you can give non-magical characters magical traits by cheating the system.
Yeah, but that's cool. It's a certain system, and you use it. Yeah, that's cool.
No, sorry, I didn't. Now I derailed your train of thought. I'm sorry. This is we lack focus.
Yeah, we do. But what have you? It's just that you have in the earlier days have played so much more of the early role playing games that there were. I haven't actually played any of the old Dungeons and Dragons. PC versions of the games. I mean, there are a ton of those.
Right.
I only played the Might and Magic series with you, and the Dungeon Master series, and Eye of the Beholder, and stuff like that. And I mean, it's my luck actually, because now I can pop them in and still have the same experience, since I'm full of nostalgia for that way. But then back in the day, then came that year, that very close, I think 1979 it was, when Diablo.
79?
97, of course, you know what I mean, you
It was in 1979 when I first encountered an electric razor.
No, I mean 1997, of course, when Diablo was released, top-down RPGs, classic hack and slay. One of the first time that I think the whole, until that point, I saw the whole genre as the dungeon crawler RPG kind of game that it was. And Diablo actually was one of the first games that brought me into the new area. And then later it was basically, when I was talking about the Elder Scrolls earlier, and
there goes the train. Can you see it? Looking out of a new train? There it is, where it derailed. You can see the fire still. Oh, sorry, go on.
Yeah, now it's more derailed. No, actually, it really is.
No, I'm sorry. I really didn't mean to cut you off. That was kind of mean. I don't know. I don't know where we're going from that. The top-down era of games, started with Diablo for me. It was Baldur's Gate. Actually, the second one I actually played completely. That I looked into Icewind Dale. There was this one, Pools of Radiance.
Yeah.
But not the classic Dungeons and Dragons one. It's still Dungeons and Dragons, but it's kind of top down. At least I think it was called Pools of Radiance. I don't know. I know. I kind of played those, but this was the time in my life where I faded out of RPGs. Actually.
No, but actually, Baldur's Gate it's a good topic, because that was the first actual game in which I was ever confronted with the Dungeons and Dragons universe, because I didn't play.
Is
Baldur's Gate plays in the Dungeons and Dragons universe? Yes, it does.
Fuck me, Sam, because I didn't know.
Whole game mechanic and the whole shebang. It's Dungeons and Dragons, dude.
I actually didn't know that. I'll confess, I only played the second part. Really, I looked into the first one, but I never really did. I played the second one. I think I played through it, but it's possible
I used to love the Baldur's Gate games, and that says a lot, because in the earlier games, like I said, I loved these old dungeon crawler games, and in these old dungeon crawler games, it was pretty much normal that you had a group of heroes.
Yeah.
The point where I really got into role-playing games were those games where you play a single hero. Therefore, hence, Baldur's Gate, back in the day, I was not too fond of that game when it came out. It was a huge success,
Really?
but
Because to me it was the other way around. Diablo pissed me off because he only had one guy.
really?
Yeah,
For me, it was exactly the same around. I could so much appreciate Baldur's Gate, but oh my god, I so loved it finally that I had one character. You know, I didn't want to identify with a whole group of people. I wanted to identify with that one single guy that is just me, you know? That's why I love Diablo so much. And that's why I had my problems to getting warm with Baldur's Gate.
No, that's what I actually thought when I played Icewind Dale.
Really?
Icewind Dale, they have this, and maybe it's in other games before that. Is it in Baldur's Gate? Oh yeah, it's in Baldur's Gate. Right. You can pause time in Baldur's Gate, right?
Yeah, you can
Right.
to give
Well,
your
okay,
certain
then
team members certain
scratch what
yeah.
I just said. I thought Icewind Dale I think was later than Baldur's Gate.
Icewind Dale was much
Later
later. First it
than
was Baldur's
Gate
Gate,
2.
then it was
No, but
Baldur's
for
Gate
me,
2,
Baldur's
Shadows
Gate
of Am, and then
right. For me,
was-
Baldur's Gate is always Baldur's Gate 2 because when
sure.
that came out, that was when I got into Baldur's Gate, and the first one I just tried after that. No, then scratch it. What I wanted to say is I fucking adored the mechanic. When you have multiple characters and you can freeze time and you can give. You do this, you do that.
You do that,
you go
you cast
there,
this spell, you attack
right.
this guy. Yeah.
Oh
no.
god, that actually was one of the things I enjoyed about these games. But it wasn't the time where I faded out. Sorry.
No,
You
no.
go
So
on.
it's I always at the it made me sound like a bigot because holy shit. I mean, Baldur's Gate and those games, they were great games, and I already put
Made me sound like a bigot.
bigot.
Baldur's Gates are lesser games. No, didn't you say bigot?
Bigot.
Yeah, right.
Isn't it a bigot? When I
It's
say I wanna-
kind of a racist notation if you say you're a bigot about those.
Bigot? Really? I thought. Oh, I'm really sorry about that. I thought it was. That's just another term for being.
No, it's true. I get what you're saying. It's just
Back in the day, I really frowned upon Baldur's Gate because I was like, nah, I didn't want to play.
Okay, then
that.
bigot is exactly the.
Yeah, I was simply a guy who was
kind of
like
a dark word,
who
I
was
appreciate
like,
it.
Yeah, but yeah, I was some of the. I was like, yeah, big group of people. You can pause the game and then they'd be like, oh, you do that and you do that. No, I wanted to live action. I wanted to be one hero against a massive enemy and shit like that. Yes, that's why I actually enjoyed Diablo as much and. Especially then, there was a German production. It was from Joe Wood. It was called Gothic. I think many of you might actually from the US or wherever you might be watching this, you actually know this game. It was one of the few German productions who really made a name for themselves on an international level.
But I think Joe Wood was just a distributor.
Yes, at first it was Piranha Bytes. Yes, they were called Piranha Bytes.
But no, it's the one thing is I think Piranha Bytes is the developer and Joe Wood is the distributor. You know. Joe Wood made the box and then put it on store shelves.
Yeah,
and Piranha Byte they coded the game.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
But I don't know.
I really
take it with a grain of salt.
I really don't know how it played on international level since it is a German production.
No, it's actually pretty fucking famous.
Yeah, I know it is and it should be. I mean, trust me, really. This is something you could make a whole video about. Trust me, about when I'm talking about synchronization, about voice acting, German voice acting in video games. Don't get me wrong, the German language is actually very, very similar to the English language. But basically, considering language-wise as close as it's gonna get. Therefore, for example, for big Hollywood productions, you know, big movies that you see in the cinema, those are very, very good. You have very good voice acting in those. But in video games, not so much. It has gotten better over the years right now, but it was always very terrible, very, very terrible. Let's just believe me when I say it was terrible. And then you had a game like Gothic where you had German voice actors, actually German voice actors. It was a German production, and they were talking.
Actually, German fucking script writers too.
Yeah, actual German script writers. It's just it's hard to describe it for you as an English community. But imagine you always were playing games, and if you played them in your maiden language, it sounded always
I
like.
think they understand because a lot of fucking American shit comes from Japan, you know, especially the console type of stuff.
Yeah, sure.
I say,
Yeah, but
I am
that's,
error.
yeah, but often that's not vocalized, you know.
No, yeah, so, okay, because synchron, I'm sorry, yeah.
Synchronized.
Right.
Concerning speech.
The speech, yeah, I'm sorry.
Spoken speech,
I was thinking about the translation there.
No, not translation.
Yeah.
I mean the spoken speech once you had voice acting in video games.
I catch your drift, yeah.
It was terrible in Germany, right? It was terrible. And this was actually a game where the characters spoke German and they spoke normally. Right? They would, you know, you would go into the into the tent of somebody in a camp, and they would be like, "Hey, you fucktard, what are you doing there? Get the fuck out of here!" You know, not like, "Oh, what are you doing there? This is my tent. You have to get out of here." No, they just said, "Hey, what are you doing here? Get the fuck out of here before I whoop your ass." Right? That was something they said. It contributed a lot to the feeling of the game. And so for everybody out there, I don't know what kind of success the Gothic games were in the US or any other countries besides Germany. If you knew them, just so you know, I'm on your side. I just love them. Another title that I want to talk about is, for example, Dungeon Siege. Dungeon Siege was one of those games that I had a friend back in the day. He had a little, you know, trouble with his parents and shit like that. And for a certain amount of time, he was basically living at my place, in my room. We would go to school together. We had a certain job on the side we would do together, you know, delivering newspapers together on our roller skates and shit like that. And every afternoon we would just hook our computers up and play video games. And that was the time where we played Dungeon Siege a lot. That was another game that made a huge impact on my understanding of RPGs, because just as we were saying, the whole aspect of the Elder Scrolls games that so fascinated me was not that you not have this pre-picked character who goes his pre-picked way, which is the same thing as in Diablo, for example, but you could just freely develop your character. And Dungeon Siege was another type of game that just had that. If you remember it, it wasn't really complicated actually. You had melee attacks, you had ranged weapons, and you had two different kinds of magic. I think one was like nature, creative, good kind of magic, and the other was like that destructive, chaotic kind of magic. But really, depending on which one of those aspects you used, your character developed in the same regard, and that is something I found awesome.
Yeah, but I only got into Dungeon Siege and with Dungeon Siege 2. Actually, might have been because you really liked Dungeon Siege.
I think, loved it back
right.
in the day.
I only got into it. I played the first part, like Baldur's Gate 1. I looked into it, never played through it. I only played through Dungeon Siege 2, and actually the PlayStation Portable add-on to it, because Dungeon Siege 2, few people know, because at that point nobody who bought a fucking portable console cared about Dungeon Siege, you know.
No.
But the Dungeon Siege 2 and the PlayStation Portable version of Dungeon Siege actually interact in a way that you can get certain items and stuff like that.
I think I heard about that.
It's weird. It was a weird crossover thing they made. No, I really enjoyed Dungeon Siege 2. It introduced one thing that I don't like. While I adored it while I played Dungeon Siege 2, the way the levels work, where you have different paths, and it's pretty much while you have diverging paths, these paths are pretty much how how do you say,
linear?
yeah, it's a linear game, pretty much. And
it is. It's not an open world experience like
Right.
you have in other games. That's
And-
true.
And just to put it into perspective, and I love Dungeon Siege 2. I mean, I played the shit out of it. And this is one of the few games I 100%ed. You know, there is nothing I did not do in Dungeon Siege 2, including the things, and Dungeon Siege, whatever, Dark Throne or what it's called on the PlayStation Portable, that you can only do if you have both versions and you cross over your information. The point being that I didn't really play through Dungeon Siege 1, and I loved Dungeon Siege 2. But the thing that making the world more linear, this is how they killed Dungeon Siege, actually. Because have you ever played the third one?
Nope.
Yeah, I've played the third one, and don't get me wrong, it's a good enough experience if you like couch co-op. Because I played with another friend, I played through the entire game, which takes you about, I don't know, 5 hours. All of 7 hours if you're slow with Dungeon Siege. I don't know. It's one of the shortest RPGs. No, it is the shortest RPG I've ever played in my entire life. And it's completely linear. It's completely tooled to the console.
Yeah.
Pretty much like what they did with Diablo 3.
Yeah.
But Diablo 3 works much better as a game
much
than...
better. But that's basically what I heard about these Dungeon Siege.
And right, and with Dungeon Siege 3, they killed Dungeon Siege.
Yeah.
Think about that. Because this is a whole world, and they have
Hey,
lore.
for everyone out there who thinks of Dungeon Siege and only knows those, actually last recent games, remember that Dungeon Siege started as a so promising project, so full of ambition, so full of potential, really.
And I'm not even willing to fucking say Dungeon Siege 3 is a bad game.
No,
if you've got a fucking Xbox and you find this game for fucking $5 somewhere, fucking take it. It's a lot of fun couch co-op. If you want to have a quick fun RPG-ish time with a friend, go through it. But when people say things get consoleized, this is the worst. This is pretty much the worst you can get. This is the worst example. They cut down on everything RPG to make it more streamlined, to make it fit with a controller, and as a game as itself, it's okay enough. You can have a bunch of fun with Dungeon Siege 3, but as a Dungeon Siege, as a follow-up to those beautiful games.
As a die-hard fan,
Right.
from the beginning, from when the game started, when the whole thing started, it was kind of a smack in the face.
Right, it's a fucking awful game in that regard. It's a fucking awful Dungeon Siege, while it's an okay game.
It's an okay game, but it's still an insult to the legacy that this game deserves to have, because it was never Dungeon Siege was never those games that got that much attention in a way that, oh, look at that, how great they've done it. But still, what they were doing was, role-playing games were the whole other state at that time. Before you had titles like the newer Elder Scrolls game like Oblivion or Skyrim, I don't think there was any titles who, just materialized on that whole concept of developing your character completely depending on what you actually used. And I don't know, it was a really good game.
Well, then again, not to... I can't speak actually for the really early roguelike and other RPG starts of games, because I never really played them, I never really played Ultima or Wizardry. I played later installations, but where did they start from? I don't know. I can actually speak for the mechanics of the early RPG games.
I never played actually pen and paper Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that, and
I actually did. My fucking cousin, when we were younger, he'd do this tabletop kind of thing, and I'm actually thankful for that, because it kind of got me looking at that stuff with a more open mind, since I knew somebody who actually did it. So that's how I played a little bit with other friends, but I only played it because I knew my cousin did, and it wasn't that fucking weird. My cousin actually does LARPs, so there's that.
But, I mean, why not?
No, it's fucking cool enough, you know. Trust me, I completely fucking support letting your freak flag fly. But let's make no mistake about it. This is a freak flag. So, but to wind it down, is there some kind of RPG, I don't know, baseline we can draw? Is there something we have learned in this episode? Is what I'm trying to ask. Other than we have problems staying on point, lack a lot of focus.
A whole lot of focus.
Oh yeah, had nothing insightful to say about RPGs whatsoever.
No, not whatsoever. Every fan of the genre is not even listening anymore,
right,
because
they're pissed off. If they're still listening, holy shit! I think we just desecrated something.
Yeah, they're just listening to get more material to fill their hateful comments with. But no, seriously, you guys. I mean, what we were basically trying to do with this, our basic goal was to just simply describe what kind of influence had especially the genre of role-playing games had to us as big ass video game fans, and especially for me as a fan of the genre. And we talked a little bit about, you know, just things about games which are a little bit older, which are more a product of their time, like round-based combat, and, you know, the whole mechanics for RPGs based around simple, you know, mathematically calculations with the addition of random calculated numbers, right? It's all the whole, you roll a dice, the whole D&D system, right? It all started as that. And then games were with new fighting mechanics, with new, not, you know, real-time based combat, and new ways of develop your skills. I think that is a big point in role-playing games that have developed over the years.
Yes, well, also stupid fucking skill trees have developed over time.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna tell this right now. I fucking love the modern RPGs. You know, I'm not one to piss on Skyrim, or for that matter on the the 3D Fallout pods, because even though I'm an original Fallout fan, this is one of the top downs I actually played and enjoyed back in the day. I appreciate the 3D Fallouts even as an RPG. I'm not one to piss on modern RPGs, but if there's one fucking thing that annoys me, it's modern skill trees, man. No. I don't like it. It tries to simulate complexity while there's actually linearity, and it's much less involved. I don't really like involved, okay? I'm not that complex of a guy, but
but sometimes you like it, you know.
Right. If I'm gonna fucking get through the effort of reading your entire fucking booklet about how your fucking system works, give me a good system mate, because at the end of it I want to make choices, and if I have an old school fucking cruel RPG like the Dark Eye series or something, they punish bad decisions, okay? And if I put like hours into getting my next level up, if this amount of complexity is required, I want to have some fucking turnout for it, okay? I want to have some difference between a good investment and a bad investment.
Yeah, I get it.
And I agree, most of the times I'm at the short end of the stick, you know? I get all the bad investments, but at least I know, holy shit, I spent a lot of time, and if I spent it somewhat better, I would have gotten a better investment. Whereas in modern RPGs, it's they try to make it balanced and fair in a way that everything is kind of good.
Yeah.
And while that makes everybody kind of happy, it doesn't justify the time you need to spend to get into a system really well.
Yeah, sure. It's the same thing if you have a, you know, not a randomly generated map, but a constant map. For example, if I think back to, for example, the Gothic games, yeah. In Gothic, if you knew the map, there were some, rare artifacts hidden with throughout the map, and if you know where they were, you could just at any point in the game just travel there, pick them up, and have a huge advantage, right? You could say this is a downside of the game, since once you've discovered it, okay, it makes the whole game a lot easier and a lot less challenging. Yet on the other side, it had ultimate rewarding moments for just these situations where you went out to explore and the world was beautifully designed and there were things hidden in it, and you could really, I don't know, you could find things. It's not, yes, but it wasn't just this, like in modern day, like let's just say modern day, like Skyrim or something. In these RPGs, you do not find a chest in the middle of a dungeon and you open the chest and then a random generator like generates a certain amount pieces of gold you find in there, a certain amount of potions with the adequate magnitude to
maybe
your level.
Maybe your odd quest item that is specific to the chest.
Maybe if you like, it could be a huge advantage if you find it right at the beginning of the game. But still, there is a quest item, a certain quest item hidden in there, and you find it, and it's a magical, very powerful item. It's there. It has its downsides and its upsides. But if you really think about it, isn't it? For me, that's what a good RPG is based around. It's first of all the world that you can explore, be that a randomly generated world with the usual, events that just keep you entertained throughout the game, or just a non-randomly generated world in which there's so much to explore, right?
But this is a whole nother chapter, because I can tell you, I have a whole lot of opinions on the randomly generated worlds that would kind of blow the frame of this.
Sure, but let's just be honest. I mean, this is if you wanna define a good RPG, the first thing is the world that you can explore at your disposal, because that's just the key element of role-playing games. And the second of all, which we talked about, is the development of your character, right? Be that a group of certain characters or a singular character, but it's whether it's being the skills or the items, the better armor and better weapons that you collect throughout the game. It is always the development of the character, which is a huge key point.
Be the taverns that you're banned from because you
were stealing in there. Yes.
Because you were stealing in there. Maybe because you were cheating a little bit while playing cards. Just a little bit. Okay.
Yeah.
So somebody could tell people that you're permanently banned from fucking taverns when you're cheating. Do you hear that, Dark Eye creators? That is a dick move. Okay.
So, to wrap this all up, as I just mentioned, for me, a good RPG was always the aspect that you have a whole world full of stuff to explore, and a certain character or a group of characters that you play and that you can develop and create like yours, right? This is the main aspect of me, why I love RPGs and fighting with weapons and magic and all that stuff.
Right, and if all of you guys out there that really enjoy understanding the systems of RPGs and developing a good character with a story, we've completely offended your feelings today. We're sorry, but take us as the misfits of your genre, okay? These games clearly weren't intended for us. They came before my time, and they clearly weren't intended for the character type that I am. But I still really fucking enjoy them. I love them to an extent that many people that actually fucking those games were intended for don't.
Yeah.
It's take it for what you will, but at least our love for these games is genuine, even though our skill may be
a little. Yeah, but regardless of skill, with role-playing games, there is always a certain amount of fuckery involved, and the difference between someone who loves RPGs between someone who doesn't love RPGs. When you say you love RPGs, it means you're also in love with that certain amount of fuckery that just,
Right.
manages to chant a smile on your face.
It's a certain amount of tenacity that is required, and
Yeah.
no matter who you are, if you play through these games as we did, you know that at least that will unify us all.
That will unify us all, and for all other regards, may God have mercy on your soul.
Yeah. Also, fuck you. We're right about all those games, and your opinion doesn't really count.